Hello, so this is our first check-in for goals of 2024. I put out a video probably in December saying what my I think I had 5 goals for 2024 were. It wasn't goals about reading numbers or reading genres because I'm really happy with how I read. It was more trying to push myself to be more organized, to keep up with things better, and to keep up with reviews, why I love what I love, so that I don't just forget everything that I read and I can be a better reviewer. And these goals have stretched me, oh my goodness, but it's been good and I've done an okay job in the first quarter at keeping up with them, which is a win. So in this video, we'll be going over my goals, how I did, as well as giving you a quarterly awards. I have picked out my favorites of the quarter and given awards that aren't favorites related. Well, they are favorites related, but not just the best, but like the best world building, best magic, stuff like that. And I'm going to share all that with you as well, just the quarterly. Here's some highlights. First goal was to keep track of reviews and stats, and this is the one that has been the most challenging for me. My goodness, but I'm gonna give myself a pass. I'm gonna say you did it. So I wanted to write paragraphs long, at least a couple paragraphs long, detailed reviews at the end of every book that I read. One, just to get better at the end of a book, reflecting on the whole thing and summarizing my overall feelings on it, but then 2, to then save those reviews so that later on in the review, if I want to revisit a book, I can easily just grab that review, read over it, be able to speak on it again. And I've done this, but oh, it's been a challenge. Like I mentioned in the other video, my friend Lynn keeps a spreadsheet of everything that I read. When she watches my videos, she just adds it to the spreadsheet. I love her dearly for this kindness. And there are times where I fall way behind in actually slotting books in where they should be, and then I have to go grab the spreadsheet and like do a few of them at once. But I had mentioned that I'm very graphic motivated. I love making graphics and kind of organizing things in that way, and I have been keeping up with that. That's one of the things that I fall behind on here and there, but I have been keeping up with it. Some of them that I showed you in the video were keeping track of how many books I read and what genres. That I've scrapped because I made a private Goodreads that doesn't have my name on it. It's just for me, so that I can keep track of all my books there, and it automatically keeps track of numbers and genres and all that. So that's simplified me having to keep up with a graphic, which has been awesome. And then as far as star ratings and wrap-up graphics, I've been doing that every month, January, February, and March, which isn't complete yet because I'm not done reading in March yet, but I've been having fun creating those each month. And in that video, I also showed you a graphic for awards, which we are going to go over the awards at the end of this video. And I just want you to know that I scrapped that graphic and I made something way better and way more fun. But I have kept up with that. So as far as keeping up with what I'm reading and my reviews and having fun with the way I'm managing it all, that has been a success. So I've done it. It's a yes. It's good job. It's just stretched me to actually keep up with this goal, which is good. That's what I wanted. I want to create habits that I'm happy with. My next goal was to keep track of my goals, because in the past I've been notorious for creating a goal and then just, not thinking about it again until the end of the year. So actually keeping up with it, actually making sure that I'm doing the thing, I have been successful at. I mentioned in the last video that I would combine my quarterly TBR videos with goals check-in videos, and I have adjusted that slightly because I've started doing wrap-ups again, which I kind of just stopped doing in 2024. 2023, it's 2024 now. In 2024, I've started doing them again, which means at the end of the wrap-up video, I'm giving a quick look at next month's TBR at the end of that video. So the quarterly TBR videos aren't necessary anymore. So I'm now just doing the goals check-in and awards in this video as its own thing, apart from here's 3 months worth of a TBR, which I actually think works better because it's not so exhaustive. It's not just like here's a million books thrown at you at once. And I think that this video will be plenty long enough this way. Goal number 3 was to continue and finish series, which is something that I had already prioritized doing in 2024, to actually keep up with the series that I'm enjoying and continuing them. And I just wanted to keep up with that again this year, which I have been doing. I've read, I think, 2 more Discworld books, or just 1 more Discworld. 1 more. I've read 1 more Discworld book, and I'm gonna read 1 next month. I know there's been a couple of people that have been asking, when do we pick up Discworld again? Next month. I've read 2 more Dresden books, and there will be another one next month. And I've read 2 more Temeraire books, as well as I read House of Open Wounds, which was the sequel to City of Last Chances, and probably some other things. I have been keeping up with series. I'm happy with how I'm doing it. And the other part of that goal was to also keep up with authors. So I said that when I do my quarterly awards, the 3 books that get the best books of that quarter, I wanted to prioritize putting another book by that author in the following month, because I'm really bad at actually keeping up with authors I love. So that's going to be talked about in this video as well after we get through these goals. But this has been a success. Goal number 4 was to collect all the badges over on my Patreon. We have a series of reading challenges and badges that we do. Lynn, my friend who keeps up with the spreadsheet, she's one of my mods, and she has monthly challenges for the whole server to participate in, and she gives out badges every single month that you complete. And then I have quarterly, I have a bingo board. I'll put it here. I have quarterly bingo things that we try to collect, and I have a badge for every season as well as a badge for space, because there's no seasons in space. I don't know, I'm a nerd. I have completed the summer challenge, and I'm working on the space challenge, and now that it's spring in my side of the world, I get to start the spring challenges, so I'm excited about that too. But I have been collecting the badges. I can't show them to you now, but at the end of the year I'll give you like a Pokemon badge collection tour. Goal number 5 was to host 1 reading sprint. I just had to do 1 in all of 2024. I really wanted it to be in the first quarter so I could just get it out of the way because I was stressed about it. And I did it. I actually hosted 2 reading sprints. They may be the only 2 I ever do, but I did them. Congratulations me. And that's the only time that I need to actually have that I've done the challenge. I don't have to do it the next couple of seasons. But I'll go ahead and give myself a check mark for symmetry each season if I end up joining someone on sprints. Like I'm going to join Gavin I think next week in one of his reading sprints. So I'm going to give myself a check mark for spring, for quarter 2 when that time comes. So those are the goal check-ins. It has been a challenge for me to actually keep up with these things, but I'm doing it, and hopefully it'll get easier as I go along. Onto the awards. That's the most interesting part of this video, I would hope. So I mentioned in the goals video that I wanted to do 3 awards. I wanted to have best, worst, and probably most surprising, or DNF. I hadn't decided yet what I wanted that final goal to be. I've got something better for you. I decided it would be more fun to do 5 awards, and since I typically DNF books I don't like, I don't usually have worst book sort of ratings. It's rare. So instead I have 4 awards that are topical, something like world building, magic system, like I mentioned before, and then I have the best, and there will be 3 that are the best. And I figured I could just kind of swap out what I make awards for each quarter depending on what I read. When I read something that just really, something about it stands out to me as extraordinary, or it just hit me exactly right, then it gets that award, and I'll just swap out the topics of the awards depending on what that season's reading calls for, and then the consistent one will be the 3 best of the season. So this season, the awards I have for you, we have the best world, which went to The Tainted Cup. I have discovered my deep love for biofiction. Anything that has to do with plant life, especially invasive plant life that's built into the world, I'm obsessed with. So The Tainted Cup, the world is overridden with plant life, their structures that they live in, the technology that they move forward using, even the augmentations of their bodies, because this is a sci-fi. It's like a fantasy sci-fi. It's bio cyberpunk fantasy. crazy mystery awesomeness, even though the mystery was my least favorite part of it. But even their augmentations have to do with the plant life. Oh, I loved it so much. It was so atmospheric, and there was a lot more going on with it as well. Natural disasters that were happening, leviathans, giant walls for the city. I mean, there was so much to do with this world that just captured me. The world was the best part of this book for me, and the characters too were phenomenal. The mystery I didn't care about, but that's who I am as a person. Oh well. Next award, funny enough, goes to another book that has a mystery at the core of it. The best hook. This goes to Wickwire Watch. Now, full transparency, I'm not actually done with Wickwire Watch yet. I will be done with it soon, but when I was making up this list, I thought to myself, what award can I manufacture to add Wickwire Watch to this list? Because I have, out the gate, from chapter 1, I was so engrossed, and with each chapter I've only gotten more engrossed. So I figured best hook was probably a really good award for this one. But the oddity of this book, the strangeness, the so many things that are not explained, and I can't help myself but to read it. I have other things to be doing, but I have to know what's going to happen next. Plus, my goodness, I love these characters so much. It's doing so much so well, and I wanted it to be in this video. But if you want more information on the book, these bees are attacking me. If you want more information on it, it'll be in the reading vlog on Thursday. Best Magic went to A Wizard's Guide for Defensive Baking. Now, this is a specific kind of award because there's so many great magic systems that I read about this season, but I wanted to do the one that was just really different and that was especially charming. It feels odd to give this book this award, but at the same time it feels like the only right answer because it was so, I love a good hard magic system, but I love a good soft magic system, and A Wizard's Guide for Defensive Baking was such a unique setting and magic, where it was set in a kingdom where there are lesser wizards, that's what I call them, it's not what the book called them, where they have these strange magic abilities that they were born with that they don't choose and that don't seem to do much. Like, there was one that was mentioned for just a sentence where someone could turn rocks into cheese. There's a necromancer, but she can only raise horses from the dead. So she goes around the book riding an undead horse. We follow a wizard who can animate baked goods. So she can make gingerbread men dance. She has a sourdough starter named Bob that is sentient. And she's a baker, naturally. And she loves being a baker. But someone is hunting down these wizards in the kingdom, because not everyone's a wizard. They're hunting down the wizards in the kingdom and killing them. And this book opens with someone having been killed in her bakery, and now our protagonist is kind of swept up in what is going on. It's another book with a mystery in it. I'm questioning myself. Anyway, there's also wizards that can like hurl lightning and stuff like that too, which is, those are the ones that I call the greater wizards in the book. But again, that's not what the book calls them. And there's also things to explore as far as, are these lesser wizards truly lesser? Anyway, so I just loved the magic of this world. I just thought it was so charming and fun. The different types of magical abilities, the oddities, the creativity, the softness of it all. So it was just like, what's happening is happening. And I loved it. Last award is Most Intriguing, and I'm not sure if that's the best title for this, but I picked Solaris specifically because Solaris is a book that wasn't always the most fun to read because it had these big info dumps that were just very tedious for me, but the ideas in it were just so engrossing to me, and since I've put it down, I constantly think about it still. I enjoyed what was being explored in this book so much. This is a sci-fi, and it's people that go to Solaris, which is a planet that they just do not understand because it has a sentient ocean, and it's an ocean that doesn't, in the sentient alien form, doesn't make sense to them and doesn't seem to care about them either. So we got to figure out what's going on here. And it's just, it's a wild ride, but it's also so much fun to discuss. I buddy read it with Joanna and had the best time. Okay, finally, let's talk about the best books of the quarter for me, my top 3 books. Coming in at number 1 is a cheat, I admit, and it's the trilogy of Area X. Technically, it's a cheat because I did read Annihilation for the first time last year, but then I reread it this year and binged the next 2 immediately after. I have a vlog chronicling my reading time with those 3 books, and it was the best time I have had vlogging an experience. I loved it so much. I loved reading these books so much. I love Annihilation, book 1. It is one of my top 5 best books ever, I believe. And the other 2 books weren't quite as good, but I still had a great time. This trilogy took over my life. It took over my mind. And if I forgot to mention the other awards, I set a rule for myself. If a book made best books, it wasn't allowed to get another award. That way I could feature many books. But if I allowed myself to let a best book also have other awards, Area X probably would have just taken them all. I can't tell you how much I love these books. Coming in at second place, we have Chess Story. This was quite the surprise. I've had this book on my shelves for over a year. I have been wanting to read it, but I kept putting it off. Finally, I got to it because one of my patrons suggested it. And my patrons pick 2 books for me to read every single month, and one of my patrons suggested it. Funny enough, the one that sent it to me over a year ago. So wow, the patience. Ruby, you're amazing. And this little novella blew me away. It's around the game of chess, which I have no knowledge of or interest in, but the way it's written, the way these characters play chess, these professionals, one professional plays chess with a group of people who are trying to best him together collectively with their strategizing together, and he sweeps the floor with them. And then one person who comes out the woodwork, nobody knows who he is, who comes and is actually very, very impressively good and gives him a run for his money. And then we find out why this person is so good with chess. We learn about him going through isolation torture and how chess was the one thing that kept him going, that kept him stable, that gave him something to focus on and think about. And going through the pages detailing his isolation, it was so engrossing. I was right there with him. Like, I felt like I went through it with him. Every detail, every emotion, the simple things like watching a raindrop fall and being so fixated on it because you need something to focus on to survive. This book, I think I read it in a day. It captured me that day and then kept me thinking for a while thereafter. And in third place is a book that I just finished, so it does have a little bit of recency bias, and that's House of Open Wounds by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the sequel to City of Last Chances. City of Last Chances was a 4-star book for me. I really enjoyed it, but House of Open Wounds blew it out the water. Book 1 followed a kingdom under occupation. Book 2 follows a group of people fighting in the trenches, or rather working in a medical tent on the front lines of war, trying to heal soldiers using their unique abilities, like being able to heal wounds, but only if you will make a vow to pacifism, which is rough when it's a soldier, or necromancy, another one of those in one of my best books. Do I like necromancy? Or being able to absorb someone's wound and then put it out into the world, eject it into the world. Many different abilities. We have found family, we have humor and character conflict, we have growth, and we have a close look at the horrors and the pain and the suffering that comes with war. I talk about it more in the reading vlog, again, that's coming out on Thursday. I kind of briefly mentioned it in my last reading vlog, but I didn't talk about it that much, so ignore me there. And this upcoming Thursday, I'll be talking about it more because I did just finish it, and oh my goodness, this book was so good. Voiceover Murphy here because I forgot that I was supposed to tell you what books I plan to read in the next quarter following the authors that made it into my best books, because that's one of my goals. So for Area X for Vandermeer, next month in April, I'm going to be reading Born, which is the one that came the most highly recommended to continue on with this author. But honestly, I'll probably be reading a lot of his books, especially if Born works out, then I'm just going to keep reading from him. For Adrian Tchaikovsky, I have a ton of his books on my TBR, so this is going to be really easy for me to continue following. One Day All This Will Be Yours is high on my list because it has dinosaurs. Guns of the Dawn is high on my list because that's the one that everyone seems to recommend, and then he also has a new release coming out in a few months that's sci-fi that I'll probably be reading. And the only one that I'm kind of struggling with is the author of Chess Story, because I don't know of any of his other works. So I went to Goodreads and checked out a couple. One that looks interesting to me is The World of Yesterday, which is a memoir, and I do read a nonfiction every month, so this could definitely be one that I pick up. But I was also looking at Beware of Pity, which is a fiction, a rich landowner who makes a very simple mistake and then it ends up ruining his life and his reputation and everything, which sounds so intriguing to me. So I might be leaning towards that one, but any fans of this author that want to give me a recommendation, I will listen. So there you go. That's my Q1 of 2024 check-in. We talked about my goals. I'm doing pretty well. It's challenging me, but that's a good thing. And we talked about my favorites of the quarter. What were your favorite books of the quarter? Do you have a top 3 books that you really, really loved? And is there anything on my list that you plan on picking up? Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.